So welcome again to our new CTFD career panel series, Dancers on the Move, Transitions to New Careers. I'm Elena Sofia Kozak. I am the CTFD career counselor working with dancers throughout the Western region at the Actors Fund. And I'm so delighted that you have all joined us today. I go by Sophia. My pronouns are she, hers, ella. I'm connecting with you from Chumash land in Los Angeles, California. I'm Latina and white. I am a light-skinned Cuban and Czech American woman with brown curly hair, brown eyes, and a blue shirt with a leaf print on it. I'd first like to introduce you to my colleague and co-host today, Nicole Fogelman, also a career counselor working with dancers, who will briefly tell you about our CTFD program for dancers. Nicole?
Hi, thank you for joining us today. I'm Nicole. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also coming from the indigenous area of the Chumash in LA. And I am Caucasian, and I am wearing a red tank top with a black little cover up. And my hair is a magenta, kind of pinkish, purplish color. And then I want to tell you about our Career Transition for Dancers program. You know, many of you might already know about this program at the Actors Fund, but just to review, especially for those who might be less familiar, the Actors Fund was founded in 1882 as a national human service organization that fosters stability, resiliency, and provides a safety net for performing arts and entertainment professionals over their lifespan. The Actors Fund offers resources to dancers at every age and every stage of their career. Our national program enables dancers from all disciplines to define their own career possibilities and to develop the skills necessary to help dancers thrive at every stage of their career over their lifetime. So our services include career counseling and virtual career workshops, educational scholarships for dancers, health and wellness services, including health insurance support, dancer support groups, and also emergency financial assistance, including COVID relief grants. We do have a dancer info session that happens every other Thursday in case you're interested, you want to brush up, or you want to find out more. And we also have some additional information and links that I'm going to be posting into the chat right now for you.
Thanks, Nicole. So a little housekeeping as we start today. For all of you here, while we won't be seeing you, we do want to know what questions you have for us throughout. So please feel free to enter your questions into our Q&A feature down below. You'll see a button there for Q&A. And Nicole will be monitoring this, answering your questions if she can, and also bringing them forward at the end of our panel so that our panelists can also share their responses with you. Watch the chat for information we'll be sharing with you, such as the links Nicole just mentioned. Also, feel free to set your view on speaker view if you want to hone in on whoever is talking in the moment, or on gallery view to see all the panelists at the same time. So now let me introduce you to our panelists for today's discussion. And I'll just call on you in the order that I see you on my screen. Shane, would you mind introducing yourself first?
Not at all, thank you, Elena. My name is Shane Rakowski. I'm here in Manhattan, Midtown, New York City. I'm originally from New Jersey. I'm currently, and always have been, a smiling white male with brown hair. I'm wearing a blue shirt, I'm 33 years old, some stubble on my face to keep me from looking like I'm 12. After transitioning, I was a professional dancer for 10 years, and then I transitioned into acupuncture. So I got my master's of science, and now I work in a Midtown acupuncture clinic.
Wonderful, thanks, Shane. And Sarah, how about you next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Bonomo. I am currently living in Lake Arrowhead, California, which is just to the east of Los Angeles, about maybe 45 miles. I am a female, brown hair, very short hair, brown eyes. I was a professional dancer, ballet companies, Broadway, national tours, things like that, and transitioned in 2010 to a role as a registered nurse, and have now gotten my master's degree and been working as a nurse practitioner for the last several years.
Thank you, Sarah. How about you, Kevin, next?
Hey there, My name's Kevin Yichan. I use pronouns he, they. I'm currently located in the Kwangin Territories, which is also known as Victoria, British Columbia, just across the border up in Canada. I am Asian American, first generation. My parents are immigrants, also a bit of Dominican mixed in there. So I'm dark skinned, darker hair, longer hair, currently wearing a dark green shirt, kind of forest colors. And I transitioned out of dancing, sometimes I'm bad with math, maybe about 8 years ago into the yoga and wellness world. I was teaching yoga for quite some time in Asia. And most recently, I moved back to Canada and I also transitioned again to Chinese medicine and acupuncture, much like Shane. So I'm currently finishing up my second career transition.
Thanks, Kevin. And Josh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Spell. I use he, him pronouns. I am coming from the Duwamish land in Seattle, Washington. And I am white, originally from Texas. My grandparents are one German and Czech, so there's a lot of heritage and influence in those traditions. I have hazel eyes, blonde hair, I have a green shirt on, and I was a professional ballet dancer as well for 12 years, and about 7 years ago, I went back to school, and I am now currently a licensed clinical social worker practicing here in Seattle.
Thanks, Josh. And Sharona.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharona. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently in Toronto, Canada, but I live in Los Angeles. I'll be back there next week. I am first generation Canadian and then an immigrant to the US. My parents are Caribbean. And I was a professional singer, dancer, actor. I did Broadway and film and television and all of those things. I still pursue that, but not, it's sort of now more of a hot, like on the side. And I'm full-time, I do personal training in health and wellness, as well as I own an immigration company to help artists with that process coming to the US. So that's been great to help people from around the world. So sort of two completely different things happening at once that I transitioned into out of dance about maybe 7 years ago as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharona. And Andrea.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Rodriguez. I'm here in San Francisco in my car right now. It's a little drizzly outside. My hair is it's curly, a little fuzzy right now, a little frizzy. My pronouns I use are she, her, ella. Yo soy Latina, Mexicana, born and raised here in San Francisco. I am a dancer and fitness instructor. I teach Pilates, and I also work as a producer and currently working on a virtual reality project about growing up in San Francisco in the Mission District.
Thanks so much. Thank you all to all the panelists for introducing yourselves. You know, we like to do these introductions just to honor who's in the room with us today. And also to acknowledge, you know, who's not in the room speaking today. We hope that, you know, we recognize that everyone has a different career journey as a dancer and faces different barriers and also different doors opening. And we hope that everyone listening today can resonate with some of what's shared and that it helps you in some way along your own career path and life journey. So thank you again to all the attendees for being here today, and let's dive into this panel. So again, the focus of today's panel is our health and wellness careers. And our first question for all the panelists is, you know, why did you decide to transition from dance, or maybe you're currently dancing, but why did you choose this new health and wellness career? What was it about you that inspired you to pick your field of choice? And I'll just, if it's okay, call on you as we've done, as we did the introductions, and give everyone a few minutes to share. So Shane, would you like to start?
Sure. Shane Rutkowski. So two separate answers to two questions that I get asked a lot is why acupuncture, and then why, what drew you to acupuncture, and why did you retire from dancing? And those are two kind of separate questions. To start, I was drawn to acupuncture because of how much it helped me as a dancer and a performer. I was a modern dancer. I worked for Sean Curran Company and Allison Chase Performance. Allison Chase is one of the founding artistic directors of Globalist and Momix. There's a lot of partnering. As you can imagine, quite a bit of injuries and bumps and bruises, and getting thrown around quite a bit. So acupuncture was wonderful for me to recover from knee surgery. I had a couple meniscal surgeries, meniscal repair, meniscectomy. And I was back on stage very quickly with the help of my acupuncturist. So it was always something I found really wonderful in conjunction with physical therapy to help me as a performer. The reason why I decided to retire from dance is in 2016 in the fall, I was diagnosed with stage 1 testicular cancer. So luckily, because it was caught early, I did not need radiation or chemotherapy, but it required lengthy surveillance. So monthly chest x-rays, CT scans, just to make sure, because of the type of aggressive tumor it was, that it had not spread and would not spread. So that kind of put the kibosh, or kind of stopped me from wanting to continue to tour. So it was like that point where, a week after surgery, I sat down with my mentor and my acupuncturist and said, tell me a little bit more about what this would take. And I think I want to transition at this point. This seems like a good off ramp. I've checked my bingo card for all the major venues I want to perform at. And I think this is a good time to maybe look at healthcare. So I took a full year to research acupuncture and to do some quote unquote ride-alongs and witness other treatments and read books and talk to the school and go to open houses, and decided the more I learned about the medicine, the more I learned about East Asian medicine and the culture, beyond just the sports medicine experience that I had personally, I was like, oh, this is great. I want to do this. And then I did. And I went to Career Transition for Dancers, met with Patch, and went down that pathway that I think we'll talk about more later. So as a cancer survivor and a former dancer who had quite a bit of injuries and surgery history, this seemed like a good fit, that I would be able to use that knowledge of injury and healing and returning to wholeness, to frame it in a positive way, to help other dancers.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Shane. Such a powerful personal journey that brought you to choosing acupuncture. How about for you, Sarah? What was it for you that led you to nursing?
Hi, this is Sarah. I got old. I had danced professionally for 18 years. So starting at about year 14 and 15, I started to consider what other options there were, what was something that I could be really passionate about that could make an impact on other people. And as I was sort of going through that process of soul searching and figuring that out, my grandmother, who was one of my heroes in life, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And so we were very close with her as a family. She lived with my parents. And I was just very impressed with the folks that cared for her, because I felt that not only were they caring for her, but they were caring for us as her family. And I thought that was something I could really wrap my head around as I looked for a second career, something that I could be equally passionate about, equally invested in. And I was just so struck by the nurses that cared for her and the impact they were having on the community. So that's really why I decided to start exploring nursing. And the way I did that initially was I was on tour with the Phantom of the Opera. And so we would sit in a city for at least a month. So there was time on my hands. So I started taking some correspondence classes that related to nursing to see if I would be even interested. I started looking at some of the sciences because obviously that's a large portion of the prerequisites for nursing. And I thought, well, if I can if I can look at these, enjoy these classes, be successful in these classes, then, you know, maybe that would help me to decide whether or not nursing was for me. So it was a hit, and I'm very thankful to have this new career. And then once I became a registered nurse, I saw just so many of the wonderful things that nurses can contribute, and a nurse practitioner really seemed to fit my passions. And so that's why I continued on to get that nurse practitioner degree.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and just how your love and care for your grandmother and seeing the support that she got inspired you to step into nursing. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
How about you, Kevin? What led you to yoga and then to acupuncture?
Yeah, I mean, I try and think of this chronologically sometimes, and it doesn't make sense. So I'll just kind of hit around a little bit. But I think, you know, two of the kind of really pivotal experiences in my dance career that facilitated the shift were bearing witness to the deaths of two of my mentors in the dance field. When I was very early on in my career, I was dancing at Sinuan Ballet, and Michael Sinuan had a heart attack while he was teaching us class. And then at the very end of my career, my mentor there, Bertrand Dutt, he also had a heart attack, and I was kind of one of the first to be there on the scene. So I think there was, and I bring this up because it really informed my sense of emotional and physical connection, in that I was seeing how I was affected by my relationship to dance and to the people in the dance world that I had loved and that had mentored me. And it started manifesting, of course, in injuries. I got shingles in my very last year as a season, my very last season as a dancer, and I had to kind of bow out of my last show, which was a little bit heartbreaking for me. Yeah, and then kind of on the other end of that, I, you know, was looking around. I was kind of late 20s at that point, and seeing that some of my colleagues, maybe in their 30s or 40s, were pretty physically in pain with not much else to do. So I thought to myself, okay, how do I take action now before I get further down the road and I have less options? And so the things that really stuck out to me were this connection between our emotional and physical bodies. And yoga really helped me make that transition as I kind of started through the asana practice and the physical practice, and it kind of fed me and led me into more of the philosophy and more of the energetics of it. Coming full circle, there was also, you know, early on in my career, many moments where I was very much helped, much like Shane, by acupuncture. And if you all are in San Francisco and know Devin Wu, he kind of was my therapist in many ways. And I had that kind of like bookmarked when I was 20. I even remember I looked into programs for acupuncture. That time, of course, 20 years old, beginning of my career, it's a master's program. I didn't even have a bachelor's degree. I was like, no way. But fast forward, you know, 10 plus years, and here I find myself having completed an acupuncture program, and really, really grateful for the ways that it's offered me this connection between physical, emotional, mental bodies, the health of the body as a whole, and also personally an investigation to my own lineage.
Thanks for sharing just the journey you went on, both with just your experiences with your dear mentors and their health challenges, and what led you to pursue yoga and acupuncture, both for your own care and then as a career. Thanks, Kevin. How about you, Josh? What inspired you to your career path in social work counseling?
Yeah, so I would say that my experience as a dancer definitely kind of opened up a lot of questions for me, and also really kind of colored the way that I interacted in the dance world as a dancer. And then kind of coming out of it, I just had these perspectives on kind of things that were missing. And so I felt like as a 16-year-old moving to New York City from Texas alone, not really knowing who I was in terms of being gay, I just felt kind of flung out into this like vast, kind of abyss of not knowing kind of what to expect. And kind of as my career progressed, it was similar in that way. And for me, the older I got, the more sort of in my head I became. And I imagine a lot of dancers put a lot of pressure on themselves, and there are a lot of expectations and rules and standards. No one can relate, right? But I think for me, I had a pretty bad injury when I was in my early 20s. And then eventually at 25, I had a labral repair. And so I was off for several months. And it was kind of then that I started this more spiritual journey and started kind of actually making space for a lot of the negative thoughts and a lot of the judgment for myself. And I actually, while I was doing my physical therapy, I did a lot of acupuncture, I did a lot of yoga, but I also did a lot of therapy, talk therapy. And it just really opened up this huge space that I didn't know existed. And for me personally, I think I have a very supportive family that there wasn't a lot of stigma around mental health and around actually externalizing or talking about things that were happening for you. And so I think that really was helpful. But eventually I left Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle, and I retired, or so I thought I was retiring. And I actually went back to school to be an interior designer. And I was like, this is not going to work for me. Like, this is just, it's not that extra passion or that extra space where I felt like I could really kind of contribute in a new way. And so I finished my year, but then I got an offer to go back to dancing at the Kansas City Ballet. And I was like, all right, I'm doing this. But I think what was really, really interesting was having a year off. I had a lot of space from kind of, for me, it was body image concerns. It was perfectionism. It was, just like I mentioned, a lot of rules. And it seemed like those had kind of lessened when I was outside of the dance world. But literally the week, I would say, our first 2 weeks of going back to the studio, I kind of noticed all of that creeping back up. And I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? So it was quite fascinating to kind of be back in the studio, but then also having this other perspective of like, I'm seeing these sort of negative thoughts just, progress more and more. And so at that time, I was like, I feel like there's something to this. And I started thinking about what my transition would be like. My body was hurting. It was not easy to come back after being gone for a year. And so I kind of, in the 2 years that I was dancing, really laid the foundation for what I wanted to do. And I chose social work really because it was a lot quicker in terms of the sort of education journey. So I finished my undergrad. Once I retired, I went to grad school and then basically trained for about 3 to 4 years until I was able to take my licensure exam. So it was still a long period of time, but it really sort of allowed me to kind of explore all these other aspects of myself, but also of other individuals. And eating disorders is where I went immediately. And that's what I have been doing for 3 years, 4 years. And I just kind of put a pause on that. And I have been devoting a lot of my time to working in the dance world. I'm the consulting therapist for Pacific Northwest Ballet School, and I've been working with a lot of other different schools, small dance companies, to be able to just provide resources and provide a space to be able to talk, because I didn't feel like I had that.
Thanks for sharing that, Josh. And what you said about starting with interior design and then realizing that wasn't it for you and shifting to counseling and social work. I feel like that's, you know, many of us can go through a couple iterations of what our career path will be before we find the right fit. And so appreciate you sharing your journey there and your work around eating disorders and supporting the dance community in that way. Sharona, how about you? What led you to pursue a career in fitness and personal training?
Hi, Sharona again. I sort of fell into personal training and fitness and yoga and all of that. I think it's sort of it can be a natural progression for dancers. I mean, we're so in tune with our body. We spend so much time being connected to it. But my dad was a professional athlete, so I sort of grew up in a home where being active without any pressure on it, it was just being active was, really like a part of my childhood and my life. So I would train with him a lot. And I sort of, at a young age, sort of understood like, oh, my dad is in his 40s and he looks amazing and he feels amazing and he can do all of these things. And so I wanted to sort of get out of like stressing about how my body looked and focus on like, I want to be functioning and happy and healthy and traveling as I get older. So honestly, the dance world and performing, it's not been very inclusive. So the thought of me being able to solely do that, it's never happened. I've never been able to. Even when I was on Broadway, I was in a show that was I did In the Heights. And it was a show that at the time was struggling to find. It had a great audience and a great following, but, it was sort of struggling to find it, to find that longevity. It was not going to last 12, 15, 25 years. And then when that show ended, it's sort of the reality of back to auditioning and, back to, being a part of an industry that wasn't recognizing mixed race people like myself yet for major roles, or, there was a token person for a long time in every production. So for me, it was just, I've got to keep myself afloat. What can I do that allows me to still pursue my artistry, but that I still like? Because I think I bartended, for a long time, which I did like. I liked human connection, but, 6 a.m. in New York City, the sun's coming up and you have to be at an audition in 2 hours. And that's not, after a certain age, it's too hard. So I fell into fitness. A friend had a fitness studio and they hired me right when I moved to LA. And it was great. I had always had a personal training certification. I got that when I was like 19 with my dad. We just went and did it together just to learn more and have it. And I sort of fell into it at the perfect time because my body was hurting, much like a lot of us spoke. Being a dancer is so demanding. We are professional athletes 24/7. And, you don't know what's getting thrown at you because you're always working with different people and choreographers. It's never the same thing. So I got really lucky to work with a lot of women or people who identify that way. And I sort of, not the same, but similar to Josh, there's a lot of stuff that comes along with one, being a performer. I've worked with a lot of, some celebrities, there's a lot of like there are things that pop up. And I found myself loving the chance to work one-on-one with people because there's such an emotional component to fitness and personal training. And I think being a dancer, we have that understanding of perfectionism, high standards. For some people, eating disorders, living in LA. I mean, even being removed from LA during COVID, like I have been here in Toronto, what an insane world that is in terms of how you think about your body and what you think fitness is. And it's so outward. So I have really loved personal training and fell into it and sort of made it full time just because I found, I'm good at this. Like I'm good at connecting with people. I'm in tune with my body. I want to help people get in tune with theirs as well. Because I think finding what fits on your body is important too. Like in fitness, there's a lot of a love for certain type of workouts that leave people in pain or injured. So I love helping people find what works for them emotionally and, physically. Yeah. And so I fell into that, and I've made that full time. And I try to be really inclusive in how I approach it, knowing that, there is no one approach to wellness. And I encourage, clients and participants in my classes and whatnot to get out there and understand acupuncture and, different things, their mental health, like sort of a 360 approach, which I think I was lucky having my dad being an athlete. He was very encouraging of like, it's not just one part of you. It's, there's your mental, there's your physical, there's your spiritual. So yeah, a long way to say I fell into it and then I fell in love, and I want to stick around in health and wellness because I think we're just so giving as dancers. You're dancing for yourself, but really you're giving so much to an audience physically and emotionally that I think something like fitness or personal training or wellness, we can't help it. We want to give, to other people. So I think that's why I've really enjoyed it so much.
Thanks, Sharona, for just sharing that, the influence of your father and his health, his long-term health, and how that influenced you, and also just what led you to have this holistic, inclusive, and a kind of integrative, inwardly facing approach to fitness and personal training. So it's really inspiring. And how about you, Andrea? What led you to pursue Pilates alongside your dance career?
Hi, Andrea over here in San Francisco. So I was dancing professionally in Disneyland for the Viva Navidad parade with Viva Brazil. And during that parade, I was training in Pilates every morning. I would go to a reformer class. And I found it to be really helpful in terms of just keeping my body strong and healthy and finding that lengthening and then strengthening. Prior to that, I had been teaching Zumba and other fitness formats, including bar, but it was something about Pilates that I felt like really helped to just kind of secure my joints and my body dancing on concrete. So what's really cool about dancing in Disneyland is that they have 2 physical therapy offices backstage. So so I'd train in the morning in Pilates, and then I would go and I would dance in Disneyland. And then during my lunch break, I would hang out with the physical therapist and take classes or just kind of get training from them, because I was trying to keep my body strong and healthy. And I was a little bit older than some of the other dancers that I was dancing with. So I really needed to make sure that I could prevent injury and whatnot, because a lot of the other dancers were starting to get injuries during the run, especially dancing on concrete. You're just more prone to things like that. So I would hang out with the physical therapist, just get more training and just kind of talk to them more about anatomy and the body. And so and during my last run with the parade, I decided that when I came back to San Francisco that I would look into maybe doing like office management with the Pilates studio. And with the grace of God, lo and behold, I was able to connect with the studio, and they were starting their Pilates training with Balance Body, the whole training program, the comprehensive program. So for me, what was helpful was getting in with the studio and working as just like front desk management and getting to know the Pilates instructors, and also too doing the whole training program. The training program was like 3 months, the comprehensive program. So it was a little intense coming out of like dancing in Disneyland and then going straight into this Pilates program. But it was worth it for me to do it this way, since I was in this transitional period. And working front desk was also really helpful, because I got to talk to all the Pilates instructors that were there. And most of them came from a dance background. They also were they had like maybe 20 years teaching Pilates. And I just kind of really dove right deep into the practice and just got really good training, got to like just sit in on classes and take classes and just kind of absorb that world. And so as I was graduated from the program, I started my practice, and I'm really grateful that I've had this this, to be able to go on this journey with all my other fitness backgrounds, but then also too having Pilates, I think solidified for me my health and wellness, fitness, professionalism, just being in this space. So I highly recommend that if you're interested in Pilates and it's something you want to pursue, look into perhaps maybe working front desk at a studio, or seeing if you can, maybe just sit in with teachers and just observe classes, because it's a great way to really kind of see how other teachers teach. Some might be more poetic with their verbiage when they're teaching. Others might be a little bit more, use more anatomy, but it's something that I truly love, and I'm really grateful because it gives me more longevity in my dance and health and wellness journey. So
thanks for sharing what brought you to Pilates and just how you connected and kind of got into working with a studio and what that looked like for you, and how you found kind of a Pilates home as a teacher. So, thank you all for just sharing, what led you to choose your kind of career field of choice. Our next question is really about your transition, and specifically just wanting to ask you all, how did you manage all the aspects of your career transition, from emotional to financial, to family, maybe even, what was that like, moving from dance to this new career, or if you're still dancing, managing and balancing both. So maybe for this question, we'll start from the other way. So Andrea, would you like to begin this one?
Sure. So can you repeat the question again?
Yes, of course. How did you manage all the aspects of your career transition when you were going from dance and starting in Pilates? And what were the elements for you with that?
For me, it's interesting because right as I was like going into this like full-time Pilates world, we also went into the pandemic. So it's been really interesting in terms of like learning how to promote myself and allowing myself sort of like being in this space of moving into just specifically teaching Pilates. So I feel like I've been able to like really just kind of try to cultivate my space. I was really looking into possibly owning a studio and taking that route. But when COVID hit, it was also like I was able to take a step back and be like, okay, like let me really look into like how if this is something that I really want to do, owning a studio, how I can make this work for me. So I'm glad that I was able to take time off and look into other opportunities. Like, okay, we're not able to teach in the studio, so now I could teach outdoors. So I've just been like learning how to like really pivot and take sort of my own practice into my own hands, and utilizing all my skills, because I have a background in video, I have a background in like doing production and marketing and whatnot. So just utilizing all of my skill sets and trying to find a way to put them all together and managing that for myself, while also trying to put food on the table and whatnot. So it is a little bit of a hustle. It has been a little bit of a hustle for me, but it's allowed me to really sort of find the right clients to work with as well. So the clients I think have been really supportive in helping me on my journey. So those are just some ways that I've been able to just trying to thrive versus just feeling like everything has to be a hustle for me. So
yeah, thanks for bringing that forward and just highlighting the fact that, in transitioning during this time, during that pandemic, and all that brought on top of just the normal kind of challenges of transitioning. It sounds like you brought a lot of resilience and adaptability to your practice, and how you managed as a multiple income holder to balance and support and sustain yourself financially, as well as fulfill your purpose and meaning in Pilates. So thanks for that. How about you, Sharona? How is the transition for you?
Um, well, emotionally, really hard. I don't think I realized how much of my identity was wrapped up in being a dancer. Um, and I don't sit back and think that's bad. I think it was something I was so in love with and passionate about, and I'm so glad that I felt that connected to what I was doing at the time. But I still say I was a dancer. Not saying I am a dancer is a weird thing to to deal with. So I think the going into fitness, it felt close enough to dance because I was still getting to move my body and work with other people's bodies. And I think, the human body, I think, is amazing, really, what it can do, especially as dancers. And then even the everyday person, like, it's amazing, especially working with women pre and postnatal, like, it's incredible. So I think that helped me a lot emotionally, that I was able to be in a field that sort of mimicked physical movement in a way, but didn't come with all of the rejection and aging and the things that dancers have to deal with as you sort of phase out. And then it felt good to know, for me personally, that I have this income that's not reliant on me being a dancer. So then when I do now choose to go to an audition or work on a project, it's a choice and it's fun and I can enjoy that as a bonus. I am in my late 30s now, and I think how exciting I get to dance versus I really hope I can get this job and then I can take 3 months off of bartending. I love the idea of I'm in this field that I love and I get to be with people and help people all the time. And just like Andrea, like, the clients sort of inform your journey in a great way. You get aligned with great people who help you understand where you're going in health and wellness. So as emotional as it was to transition, I think I ended up in the best space because it gives me the chance to still be an artist if I choose, but not feel the pressure of that. And I love sharing, what I learned as a dancer with clients in my field, so I think it really does inform so much of my work now that I'm emotionally excited about what I do. And I don't know that I'll be in health and wellness forever, but right now I absolutely love where it's going. I think, even just having two, people who do acupuncture, that's something a long time ago I used to do, but not many people knew about or thought it was weird. Or, I love the space that health and wellness is in now. It's so inclusive. It's expanded. There's so many different ways that we think of it besides just fitness. So I think that has helped my transition a lot, how open everything is now.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the what you mentioned about your identity as a dancer and how you are relating to yourself as a dancer through your transition emotionally, and the grief, loss, or whatever that was, as you move through. And that you still can choose to take on gigs if and when you want to without having to rely upon that income. It's really powerful. So thanks for sharing that. How about you, Josh? What was the transition like for you?
Yeah, I can so relate to Sharona in terms of the emotional piece, the identity piece. It was hard. It was very challenging in every aspect, financially, emotionally, physically. So I moved from Kansas City back to Seattle. I also ended a relationship. I started undergrad. I was applying to grad school. I had to move because, I no longer had my living arrangement. So I think I was on autopilot for probably 7 years. And like I mentioned earlier, just actually stepped away from working in eating disorders. And that's like the first time that I haven't had a traditional job in terms of the sense of having an employer that is providing health insurance and other benefits like that. And so right now, I think I am actually feeling some of the direct effects of what that transition was like. And I intentionally was able to do that. And I'm very fortunate to be able to take this space. But I just want everyone out there to know, right, that it's a lot. It is so much to move from, for me, a profession that I was so passionate and love with, you know, at 16, I didn't envision myself doing anything else. I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't care about school. I didn't care about, you know, like long-term sort of goals, like having a house or, you know, just having assets, things like that. I wasn't thinking about that because I was in the dance world. And so I think it just becomes very sort of just tangled. And right now I'm able to untangle some of that. But I realize how fortunate I was to have another focus and another passion, because I think being able to help people and being able to find just this level of hope or find strengths or find something that someone can actually kind of hold on to, right? Even if that is to just embrace your emotions. And maybe that's the only thing you can control at this moment, is to actually just make space for how you're feeling. So that's just been really helpful. And I think my transition from a dancer to a therapist has really kind of been healing for me personally as well. And really just being able to slow down. And I think that, again, I got a lot of messaging from the dance world that you have to have it figured out. You need to know everything, you know, right away. And I actually kind of tried to present that to everyone. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is exactly how I'm going to transition. I'm going to open a private practice. And I'm like, how do I know all of that stuff when I'm leaving, you know, like many, many years in the dance world? And so I think that that's been really helpful to just kind of show everyone that it was a tough transition on so many levels. But it also allowed me to dig deeper in terms of who I really wanted to become as an individual and also as a dancer, right? I'm lucky to be back in the dance field in a different way. But I would say that my transition has really helped me to be a more compassionate, empathetic, caring, honest, vulnerable, authentic practitioner.
Thanks for just being authentic and normalizing that messy, you know, the messiness and the not knowingness and the challenges and gifts within that through a process of transition. And like Sharona, it sounds like you really, one of those gifts was being able to be of service in your own work as you made your transition. So thanks for uplifting that and just letting you know, reminding us all that it's a normal, natural part of the process of change. How about you, Kevin? What was the transition like for you?
Wow, it's just incredible to hear everybody's stories. I just want to say that first, because, you know, these stories, I feel like hearing these stories and knowing these stories just opens up our spectrum of possibility and understanding. Similar to, you know, what everybody has expressed, it is rough sometimes. And I'm still managing it. I feel like I manage it every day, and I will be managing it every day for the rest of my life, because this identity as a dancer is so consuming when we're in it. And in the best and worst of ways, like for better or worse, you know, the passion that I think we share as dancers really, really sometimes alienates us. And so I found for me, what the most important thing was, and what I was really lucky to do, was really just take time. I gave myself, you know, I set up some intentions as I wrapped up my formal career to teach a little bit, but I also allowed myself to be open to possibilities as much as possible. And opening up that space and time led me to places I didn't even dream of. So I somehow got a residency in Fiji for 2 months, which led me to Bali for a holiday. That holiday became 4 years. And not to say that that's like, you know, it sounds dreamy, but there's always trouble in paradise, you know, wherever you go, there you are. And so I took it upon myself in that first chunk of time in Bali to take 6 months off of dancing, no dancing whatsoever, just completely like have a clean slate, have some space. And in that time, and I think continually over time, the question that keeps coming up for me as I'm never quite separated from this drive and love for dance is, what is dance for you? What is dance for me? Yeah, there's so many aspects to it that we all identify with or connect with. There's performing, there's the training, there's maybe the mentorship, maybe there's the creation. There's so many different facets to it, right? Maybe it's that otherworldliness of being in a theater. And so for me, when I kind of continually ask myself that question, there are these kind of points that come up. One of them is mentorship. And this is just a personal share, right? One of them was mentorship. And another one was, and it's funny because Josh and I were in a call a few days or weeks ago, and one of them is performing, right? But it's not necessarily the performance aspect of it, I discovered. It was this ability to be in a certain kind of flow state, right? A certain kind of state where you've done the training, you've done all you can, and then you're just there and you let go and you accept what's happening. Yeah, and for me, that's what I started to draw into my new careers. Okay, like if I can tap into this flow state to be fully present as a teacher, as a practitioner, I get that same love and that same passion. I don't have to disconnect myself from it, right? I don't have to take 6 months off of dancing again or do this and that again. Yeah, and so managing all of those transitions, I think is, has been a journey, will continue to be a journey. I kind of speak more to the emotional parts of it. Financially, of course, there's moments where you're unsure, and as much of that unsureness is scary, I think it's also a valid risk. And it's a risk that I personally am willing to take to open myself to really discover what else is out there and how I can connect to myself and to other people in a new way on a daily basis.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for that reminder that we're always in transition. There's never like this final destination, even when we start a new career, or, there's always these cycles of change we're going through in our career and our lives. And that connecting to that flow state that you experienced as a dancer and bringing that forward into whatever you're doing is a really powerful gift, and that it's supported. Sounds like it's really supported you in your journey. So thanks for uplifting that. And yes, I mean, several of you have spoken to this like all-encompassing identity of being a dancer. And we know it's not just something we do or have done. It's a part of who we are. It's a big part. And so how do we navigate and work with the dancer within and bring them forward in whatever new work or life we're stepping into? What does that look like and feel like? How about you, Sarah? What has the transition been like for you?
So I so agree with everything that everyone has said in terms of just this transition being an ongoing process. I mean, I graduated from nursing school now 11 years ago, so I've been in this new field for quite some time. One of the hardest things I think initially, as folks have already spoken to, is sort of that change, not change in identity, but a shift to where your focus is. And so moving from dancing into nursing, one of the hardest things for me, if I'm completely transparent, was going from being an expert in my field back to that novice category, and being, in all honesty, humble enough to run with that and realize that it didn't mean I was any less. It was this opportunity to have courage and step forward and believe that I could succeed in another area. And so that transition backwards from expert back to the novice again was really humbling. And it was really eye-opening to see how much I didn't know about the world, about nursing, about people. And so that was a fantastic opportunity for growth for me that I wasn't anticipating, but it was hard and it was humbling. And there were days, I used to joke with my friends that nursing school is just as hard as ballet, only they don't tell you that you're fat and ugly too. So like you get that part off, but the rest of it's just as hard because there's so much to learn. It's a brand new vocabulary. You have no idea what the professors are saying. The verbiage that they're using, you've never heard in your life before. So all of those things add up to this incredible challenge. But there's something about being a dancer and having that background in overcoming whatever your obstacles were as a dancer that just give you so much grit. And I found that I could embrace it with the same sort of tenacity that when I was trying to learn a certain step or a piece of choreography that was just kicking my butt. When I was trying to learn a concept in nursing, I was like, okay, no, if I could figure out how to do X, Y, and Z variation, by all means, I'm going to figure out how the heart works, right? Or whatever the case may be. So those transitions were really challenging for me. Financially, it was, I think as a lot of us dancers are super organized and we're very kind of type A and we get all our ducks in a row. And so, being able to utilize the funding from Career Transitions for Dancers was a huge help. But additionally, I turned over every stone to try to find money to help pay for my schooling. And I chose to do an associate's degree in nursing first, just for that reason, so that I didn't have to go into debt over it. And that was great. It worked really well for me. Obviously different paths for everybody, but just making sure that I had that financial backing helped my peace of mind in making this leap. And then family wise, I really made sure that my team was on board with me before I jumped into this because, I was in my middle 30s. I didn't want to drag the whole gang through the ringer with me if it wasn't something that everybody was on board about. So just making sure that my people were with me and were on the same page and willing to go through the journey with me, because it certainly is a journey that impacts everybody around you. And so they were all so incredible and lovely and helped me in every way in terms of the support process goes. But I would just say that the transition is never over. I got my first job as a nurse and I thought, I've arrived, this is it. And I didn't really like it, if I'm 100% honest. There were things about it I loved, but I had to keep searching. And that's the brilliant thing about nursing, is that there are so many different avenues, and it encouraged me to continue my education. So that's one of the reasons why I kept going and worked on that nurse practitioner degree as well, because I was really seeking to find my fit within this new field. So always, the sort of attitude of dancers, I believe, is primarily lifelong learners. We always want to discover and grow and learn new things and be better at whatever it is we already know. And so I think that will just lead anyone through a transition with great success if they just continue to strive to find their fit and to continue to learn as they go, because there's always something to be learned. Even if it's not a positive experience, you can learn something wonderful from it.
Oh, you're muted, Sophia.
It's such a great reminder that that we are lifelong learners, and that even coming from a profession where we've attained some level of mastery, and then entering a new field, like you said, as a student, there is a quality of being able to just be open to learning something new and gaining mastery in a new area, and letting that be okay and fun and hard and all the things that it is, that it's letting it be okay. And Shane, how about you? Your transition journey, what was it like? What has it been like for you?
It's interesting. So I'm going to try and add on something new that hasn't already been said, and so much wonderful things have already been said. But if I can adjust it, it wasn't any more difficult than being a dancer already was. And that sounds somewhat framed in a negative way, but like, very few people like take the dance trajectory, say, I'm going to go to this school, I'm going to get this job, I'm going to work for this company, I'll have a full career, I'll be director of the board, and I'll retire. And like, very few people like get their first Broadway gig that they ever auditioned for, like step off the bus and are famous immediately. If it happens, wonderful, good for you. I haven't yet to meet that person. So my point is that dancers already, and most of them, have this winding trajectory to end up. I was going to be a professional tap dancer. I tap danced for a long time, came to New York City. Someone said, have you taken Sean Curran's class? I said, yeah, that seems fine. And I fell into modern dance, fell in love. And even my dance career kind of meandered and transitioned all over. And I'm sure everyone found their company, found their niche, found that like flow state, like Kevin was saying. And if you're open to those opportunities that they present themselves, you found a way to make it work, whether that was bartending at 6 a.m., like some people have mentioned, whether that was doing video editing, whether that was taking yoga, Pilates, like everyone has many different pathways, and it's not linear, even though we're kind of told that it should be, right? So there's this lateral thinking. And as different opportunities start to close down or open up, it can take shape and form. So for me, I took a full year, much like Kevin, to sort of see where those pathways went. And then the biggest help, besides going to career institutions for dancers, having a little bit of financial security, applying for student loans, and then interest rates sort of plummeting, which was wonderful in 2016. Terrible if you had investments, but if you took a variable rate student loan, phenomenal. Was that I started to chip away at my secondary jobs that were not related to the field I was going into, right? To quote Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act 2, if you wake up and all you think about is singing, like you should be a singer. I had a friend who said to me, like, if you don't want to be a dance teacher, why are you teaching dance? And I was like, because it pays well, you know, like, it's a good question. So I had to take a pay cut and quit some lucrative editing and video editing and production jobs to go intern at an acupuncture studio. And I was like, well, this will be hard for a little bit, but I don't want to be a video editor. I want to be an acupuncturist. So you start to pick and choose and find the people and opportunities that get you where you want to go as that funnel starts to narrow. And then if I could be even clearer about that, I would say there's always, I lost my train of thought, that's gone. So I knew where I was going to land. Oh, that was what Pat said. The 60-foot jump isn't as scary if you know where you're going to land, right? So you will look, and like for Sarah, you might not find, the first one might not be where you want to land, but you check that box and say, that's not where I want to go. So you do the best you can moving through with what you got. But dancers have so much intrinsic knowledge, and whether or not you've learned anatomy, you've lived it, and you know what these muscles do. And whether or not you studied orthopedics, you know these injuries because you've probably experienced a few of them. Whether or not you understand body dysmorphia or the big Latin words and these terms that you're going to study, you've experienced it and you've witnessed it. There's such a breadth of experiences that dancers bring to whatever career it is, especially in health and wellness, that you're probably way more ahead than, oh, that was what I was going to say. Standing on shoulders of giants. You're not the first one to do this. That's my final point. You're not the first one to do this. And if you can find someone who's already done it and pick their brain and say, what did you do? Kind of like what we're doing here. Can I, reach out? You have a large network already, and find someone who's made that jump already, and chase them. And that's probably the best advice I could give. Sorry, I lost my train of thought in the middle. I found it.
Those are such great points, Shane. And just, one, being able to talk with someone who's already done it in a field of interest. We'll be sharing with you a little bit later, that we have some resources available to everyone listening in order to do that, either with the panelists here or other CTFD clients, if you're interested in connecting one-on-one and talking with someone in a field of your interest. We also, as Shane referred to, all of the panelists in today's discussion have received CTFD scholarships. So we'll be speaking to that as well, but just know there's tuition support here through CTFD for you as a dancer, if and when you decide education is the next step in your career journey. And to Shane, your point that, it can be a momentary dip in one's finances, that education, it is an investment in your future, but that having your sights set, beginning with the end in mind, for as much as you can see, sometimes, it might be foggy as far as the eye can see, but if you can just see your next step forward, that's all you need. When you look down, to get you to where you want to go. And I really resonate with what you said. All the clients I've worked with, dance clients, has so much intrinsic knowledge within their own bodies, and intuitively seem to sense what it is they want to do, and that meaningful work, even just slight inklings of what that could be, just can open the door. And we're here to support you and talk with you as career counselors to help you discover and explore what those could be. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Nicole to share a few of the resources we do provide here at CTFD to help you in your career journey. And then we'll save the last 15 minutes for Q&A. And if there are any last thoughts you as panelists would like to share with our listeners today. So we'll start with you, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shane, for just that helpful transition, because, that's what we're trying to do here at the Actors Fund, and especially in Career Transition for Dancers, is build a dancer-to-dancer network, as we're calling it. And this is part of that, these career panels and other networking opportunities and events that we want to provide and create, as we build this more. We have more of these career panels coming up, so I'm going to put that information in the chat for you if you're interested in education careers or arts, leadership, and business. You're here today, but you might still be feeling things out. So there's other panels, or maybe you want to share those panels with some friends that are interested in those areas. And then again, I want to share some of our other information and links to different areas of our program. And then also I'm going to share again our emails, myself and Sophia, because like Sophia mentioned, if you would like to speak more, do an informational interview, as we call it, with one of the panelists today, or, you have another area of interest. I know in the Q&A, someone was interested in movement and dance therapy. We can check our list of people who, dancers who have transitioned, just like our panelists, who are available and want to speak to other dancers about the transition and help them out. So we can see if we have anyone who's in your field of interest who is available, and we can connect you to them. So I'm going to drop different links into the chat, including our emails, in just a moment. And then for the Q&A, if you want me to just throw that out there now, Sophia. We had two questions that kind of went together, Connie and Yuki. So Connie said, what role did the Actors Fund play in your transition? Were there other sources of support, financial or emotional, that helped with this transition? And Yuki said, how did you support yourself financially, living expenses while studying, transitioning into your new career? So I felt those kind of went together.
Well, that's a great question. Thank you both, Connie and Yuki, for that. Are there any panelists that would like to address either how Actors Fund CTFD helped you on your journey, or other resources you looked to, and how you managed your finances during that time of transition?
I can speak to it. The scholarship helped me at a really pivotal time. Actually, I was sort of unhappy in the position I was in, and I wanted to, as Shane said, we are constant learners, you know, we just can't help but seek knowledge. So I met Sophia. A friend actually told me about the program. And then, although I knew about CTFD, I had never looked into it. And she said, you should go and talk to them. You know, I got some help because at the time I financially couldn't afford the certification I wanted, but I wanted to work in pre and postnatal more with women in that scenario. And I went, and it was really helpful because it just came at the perfect moment. So that allowed me to get the certification I needed to then pursue this other avenue in my career. And also meeting Sophia and having someone to talk to about how hard it was to transition. And like, you know, I'm so glad my friend, I would have never thought to come to CTFD. And, you know, aside from money, even the emotional support in filling out the application and looking back at things and, you know, assessing where I'm going and what I would be using this funding for was really helpful. Financially, on my transition journey, lots of late night bartending. You know, I kept bartending all the way through. I would wake up at 5 to go do clients when I sort of started in my fitness and I was getting more clients. And I'd be going to bed in LA at 2, 3 in the morning after bartending. And it was tough in that moment, but I'm a person, financial stress is just life stress for me, any kind of it. So I did it that way, which I think I just knew there was a timeline. If I knew, okay, it's a few more months of this, I had a plan of like how long I would be in this sort of unsustainable thing. So I think it might be helpful to look at what are my options in terms of what other jobs can I do, not forever, but that will help me manage my stress. I might be a little more tired, but I'll be a little less stressed. You know, so for me, that was better for me to have the financial, you know, for the 2 hours I was sleeping better because I knew that at least I had a little bit of money coming in. And then that didn't last forever. So for me personally, and I think everybody's different, I kept side jobs, which I think dancers are so good at finding and keeping and working. I kept those going until I felt really solid in where I was at with my career. And that just helped my peace of mind. Now, that's not for everyone, of course, but it helped me minimize being, you know, having to take loans and funding. And then when I was ready to full-time go into my career, I was just sort of off to the races. So in my experience, people will sort of make you feel guilty about being a certain age and having side jobs and doing these things. And I would say to anyone worried about that or feeling that pressure to not think about that, you know, whatever you need for your sort of peace of mind to do those jobs and those things. I did notice at a certain age, people sort of look at you like, oh, you're still doing that, or, oh, you have 3 jobs, or, you know, there's a stigma around the hustle, the side hustle. But in your transition, don't be afraid to continue that if you can, if that helps you. I think that helped me a lot. So that's how I went about it.
Thanks so much, Sharona. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I think speaking on what Sharona said, coming off of that, there's such an adaptability that we have as dancers and resourcefulness. And I think leaning into that is really helpful. I also want to acknowledge that hustle is very much a colonial way, you know? And so as things are changing in this world and we're seeing the colonial systems and commercial and capitalist systems really like being questioned, I think there's a real value in things like what we're doing right now in, you know, having these points of meeting and discussion. And there's so many great resources at the Actors Fund, whether it's like Sharona was just saying, you know, even just talking to Sophia, like she's a great resource. And, you know, on a practical side of things, you know, that kind of space and that kind of open conversation and welcome conversation can lead to ideas. It can lead to ways of making passive income. I had a clothing line for like 2 years and like pretty random. It's gone now. But, you know, ways to kind of hash out on a real person-to-person basis of what's relevant and what's possible. because everybody's so different, right? And so it's not going to be cookie cutter what any of us did. You're going to find your own way. We're all finding our own way.
Great points. Thanks, Kevin. Any of the other panelists want to speak to this question?
I'll just briefly share that I think there's a way to be like strategic and finding how to do that. So for example, like, and I had mentioned this earlier, when I worked front desk at the studio that I was at, the studio was also hosting the Balanced Body workshop for the Pilates Comprehensive Program. And so I was able to get a discount because I was doing like a work study kind of exchange, which lowered the rate for the program, along with getting the scholarship. That was really, really helpful for me. So having that along with like all my other side hustles and working with Sophia just to also like work on my resume, because, you know, I was also looking into jobs working in production. So I just like had like all these things kind of like lined up and, you know, working, you know, trying to find a way to like make it all work. It was all like a Tetris, but I think that the best way to go about it is that look into the program that you're interested in and find ways to either look into it, whether you're going to go into fitness or another program. Look into the scholarships. If there's a will, there's a way, and there's always a way to try to work it out to make it work for you. But my suggestion, my feedback is like, don't give up and find ways to do what you love and make it happen for yourself, because that's the most important thing, is that you enjoy what you're doing and that you're not disappointed in your process. It's all a process and it's all a hustle, but enjoy it while you're looking for new opportunities or you're transitioning into a new aspect into your career.
Thanks, Andrea. And Sarah, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, since this panel is specific to the health and wellness fields, to be sure to look into many health and wellness careers are finding it difficult to staff all the positions that they need, particularly in nursing and those kinds of areas is what I'm familiar with. But many employers are offering tuition reimbursement. There are also many programs that are available that if you do take a student loan, if you agree to work X number of years under this certain jurisdiction, they will reimburse sometimes all of your loans or up to 85% of your loans. So there are many unique programs out there in regards to these fields in health and wellness. You just have to do a little bit of legwork and spend some time on Google and kind of research what opportunities are available, because there are so many needs for people in this area that are not being met. And so there are a lot of ways to get your schooling paid for.
It's a really great point. And, you know, just checking and seeing what fields right now are in need of more workers, and seeing where the need meets our own, where we find meaning and purpose and fulfillment, kind of bringing together what you, Sarah, and Andrea have mentioned. So, and for those listening, we offer 3 scholarships for certification programs for undergraduate degrees and for master's level degrees. So you're welcome to apply to any or all 3 of those if and when they apply to you. So just know that at any level of schooling or training you're seeking, there may be a CTFD scholarship that can support you in that. Nicole had one other question that was brought up by a participant. Nicole? Thank you, Connie.
Yeah, so there isn't a name here for who asked, and Sharona already gave some reply to this person, but they were just sharing that their family isn't as supportive as they'd like in this process, asking them to continue to dance a bit longer, letting them know how lucky they are to be a dancer. So they said they know that their family, they have always been the dancer to them and their friends, and so it's scary for them too. And so they're wondering, has anyone else experienced this with their families, and how did they navigate that?
Such a great question, important. What is your relationship with your family as you went through this transition?
I don't have a lot to add in terms of like how to navigate, but I guess I just want to normalize that I had a very close friend who was actually um, applying to like a very prestigious school, and she had sort of this really great ambition about what she wanted to do, and her parents would not support her in her transition from dancer to this new career. She's now a lawyer and she made it work for herself. But I think what I really kind of witnessed as I was really close with this individual was that it was more of the parents' work in terms of being able to let go of their daughter's identity as a dancer. And I guess not taking that all on. And I understand that that's really difficult, especially if you're very close to your family, or especially as you're looking for support, when you are making this transition. But just kind of from the outside looking in, I would just encourage you not to take it on yourself. You can't fully just change someone's mind. And it might be more of sort of their letting go, their grief process. In addition to what you're already going through, but not holding something that's not yours entirely.
Thanks for that, Josh. Such a good reminder, and just freeing ourselves from the the perceptions that others in our sphere may have of us, not being tethered to those. Anyone else on family dynamics or relationships as a dancer, as a major transition?
Oh, I will say one more thing, if that's okay, to this. I don't know who asked the question, but I think maybe a lot of people similar to myself, our parents' generation may not have had the opportunity to pursue certain avenues or careers. And so, as Josh was saying, that's a bit of maybe what that is. And then we get stuck holding on to the guilt of, for me, I'm first generation, and I actually have very supportive parents. So I didn't experience this, but I did. I do feel that sort of like, oh, we love watching you dance, or like you feel that sort of guilt around the idea that your parents provided these opportunities and your family supported them, and you got the chance to have this amazing career and do something that used to be seen as a hobby, in their generation. So, or that generation, maybe, let's say. So I think, just, I guess, echoing what Josh said, but recognizing that you may feel that guilt because you think, oh, like they didn't get to do that. I should do this for as long as I possibly can, or whatnot. I'm not sure who asked that, but again, letting go of that, because you can absolutely have more than one passion and more than one thing you're doing as passionately as dance in your life. And for me, my family loves to see me dance still if I am dancing in something, but also loves to see the work I do in fitness now. I think people get on board once you're focused on what you need and you're going with that. It naturally they transition with you. I think there's such a mourning for everyone around you because, again, your identity was tied to being a dancer, and that's how they think of you as well. So just recognizing that, and I think Josh's point is amazing, is like letting go of what's not yours to hang on to in that scenario.
So great. And thanks, Amina, for just uplifting some of the things that have been shared, not holding something that's not yours entirely. And you can absolutely have more than one passion. Yes. Kevin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also that, transitions are different for everybody. And so the timeline that it takes for us to transition personally is going to be different for the people that surround us. And so being cognizant of that, and having the support around you to accept that and to have faith and trust in yourself is, I think, something worthwhile too.
Yes, having that faith and trust in oneself, it can feel out of reach at times, but just every day, taking a little bit more in within ourselves. Are there any other final words that the panelists want to just bring forward to share before we close today. I really appreciate all of your wisdom, your authenticity, your vulnerability. Thank you so much for sharing your journeys with us. Any final words from any of you you'd like the audience to hear or to know?
I just want to reiterate that I'm here for anyone that wants to talk. And I love what Shane said about not necessarily having to recreate the wheel. I didn't do a lot of work, or I didn't know, or I had a lot of fear in exploring and looking at what was possible and available. And now looking back, I'm like, I just wish I could have found someone that could have answered some of these questions. So in whatever field you're going into, even if you don't want to be a social worker, I am more than happy just to talk through some of those steps and just some of those answers that feel like, well, duh, I should know that. No, you shouldn't know anything. Like, there's not a roadmap here. But there are people that have done this before and have been down this road.
Make it so much easier if it came with a little book, right? And Shane, were you going to mention something?
Yeah, so the last thing I want to say is you don't have to know exactly which career and what hospital or what your exact certification is going to be. So don't lose sight of your end goal. And if that's health and wellness and it's to help people, if there's to be less pain in the world, to live a life of service, whatever your mantra or your trajectory is, you're not beholden to an occupation. You can have a larger purpose. And if you keep that in mind, you'll figure it out, or you won't lose sight or get wrapped up in the label. So I think everyone here in their own way wants to help the humans around them and to lessen suffering a little bit. And if that is what you want to do, whether that's anywhere in this broad spectrum of health and wellness careers, you'll find it, or you'll find something adjacent with that goal in mind. So don't lose sight of having such lofty goals, because that's a great thing, and we need more people who help. Thank you.
Thank you again to all the panelists. You've been amazing. Really, really appreciate all of you for your time, your generosity of spirit, and being here with us. And thanks to all the participants for joining today. Please stay in touch, keep us posted. Our next info session is next Thursday, July 8th. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to Nicole or I. Look forward to seeing you, and take good care of yourselves. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for coming today.